US Navy fighters practiced a strike on the Donbass. A wing of F-18 fighter bombers from the aircraft carrier Harry S. Truman of the US Navy has practiced strikes against the Donbass from the waters of the Adriatic Sea. Data on this subject is provided by CNN. This is the first time since the end of the Cold War that a carrier strike group, which includes the aircraft carrier Harry S. Truman and 5 escort ships, plus at least 1 or 2 submarines, whose presence is never publicly acknowledged, is under the command of NATO. The Harry S. Truman, carrying 90 aircraft, including a fleet of F/A-18s, was heading to the Middle East in mid-December, but the Pentagon decided to keep it in Europe as tensions began to mount. Rear Admiral Kurt Renshaw, commander of the 8th Strike Group, of which Harry S. Truman is a part, told CNN, "I think this sends a signal to the Allies that they can count on us. Because Truman is close to European shores, its aircraft can reach most of Eastern Europe in less than an hour, and its presence in the region gives NATO members such as Bulgaria, Romania and Poland additional security assurances," CNN reports.
The U.S. and its allies in a united show of force facing aggression from Russia. The USS Harry S. Truman is in Europe, refining cooperation with NATO allies to make sure the alliance can operate more coherently, says Naval Flight Officer Jeanette Lazaro.
We just go out there, integrate to different NATO partners, anybody we are working with, and we work to kind of smooth the communication processes.
As Russia continues to amass troops near the border with Ukraine, the U.S. says it will help further strengthen the NATO alliance. This is the first time since the Cold War that a full carrier strike group has been placed under NATO command, with ships from various NATO countries flanking the Truman. The U.S. kept the Harry S. Truman in Europe longer than planned as the standoff with Russia intensifies to reassure America's allies that the U.S. is fully committed to collective defense. Russia has pulled together more than 100,000 troops near Ukraine, the U.S. believes, and Moscow could order an attack at any time. While President Biden has said he would not send U.S. forces to Ukraine, the Harry S. Truman can effectively fortify NATO's eastern flank. Despite Russia's massive naval presence in the Black Sea, the carrier's F-18 jets can quickly reach the area close to Ukraine. The Truman's commander says years of integration with allies are now paying off.
We're committed to our alliances, our partnerships. We're able to operate plug and play anywhere in the world. And from an adversary point of view, we're agnostic. If we have the strong partnership, then that's stronger than any individual adversary could ever be.
The U.S. says Russia would pay a high price for any further invasion of Ukraine. And the Pentagon has just announced it will deploy additional U.S. troops to Germany, Poland, and to Romania.
The current situation demands that we reinforce the deterrent and defensive posture on NATO's eastern flank. President Biden has been clear that the United States will respond to the growing threat to Europe's security and stability.
But the U.S. and its allies say they hope diplomacy will prevail, as one of America's strongest deterrent forces remains on guard.
Fred, it must have been, just amazing to see that and to understand it. We find out tonight that President Biden is deploying 3,000 more troops to Eastern Europe. From what you have seen, how has the U.S. and NATO actually increased readiness? What have they changed?
Well, I think by a great deal. And first of all, Aaron, one of the things that happened is that NATO has welcomed the fact that the U.S. is deploying those extra forces to Europe. They say it really shows the U.S.'s commitments to that collective security. And that's certainly something also that we saw on the ground or on the sea today as well, where it's not only about integrating that U.S. carrier group into NATO as well and making them operate better together. It's about really operating in all of Europe. And there's so many assets that are involved in all that. All that is very complicated. You have tanker planes that are in the air. You have surveillance aircraft, and all of this just shows that NATO is working better and better together. And one of the things that we keep hearing again and again, Aaron, is people are telling us if there's one thing that Vladimir Putin has achieved, he's actually increased the coherence of NATO and made it a stronger organization.
Despite the fact that there is no evidence in the CNN report that actions were being practiced in the airspace of Ukraine, on the footage published by the channel you can see that a group of fighters headed straight for the border with Ukraine, after which they turned around and lay down on the back well. Experts believe that it is precisely because of the intention to intervene in the war in the Donbass that the aircraft carrier Harry S. Truman and the strike group are stationed in the waters of the Mediterranean Sea, making transitions between the small seas of the region.